I would like to welcome everybody to this session. It's actually a webinar in the context of the VET Skills Week 2018 that the European Commission is organizing this week. But it's also the first eTalks that our project BEANS is organizing. There will be this one this year, and there will be 3 more in 2019. My name is Carmen Arroyo. I'm the Executive Director of eucen, and my colleague Francesca Uras, who is the Project Officer of our association. Between the two of us, we will present you our project, what we are doing, what we have discovered until now, and what are the plans for the next months for the project. I would like to invite you, please, to make any questions or comments that you feel like it on the chat, if you have any, and at the end of the presentation we can answer these questions, or if you have new questions you can also tell us and we can talk to you about that. So I will start by showing you the list of points that we will explain during the presentation. We'll talk a little bit about the background, why we have prepared and presented this project to the European Commission, and what was the situation that we were aware of and what we want to achieve, some facts and figures and the partnership of the project. And then Francesca will talk to you about the timeline, content profiles, case studies. Then she will talk about the commentary report on case studies and the guidelines and the platform. And I'll talk a little bit about the course, which is at the moment under development, and about the BEANS Validation of Prior Learning Award planned for 2019. So why you can prepare, design, or submit a proposal like BEANS to the European Commission and ask for funding? As you all know, there has been a raising from the war in Syria, but before that already existed a flow of migrants and refugees coming from Eastern countries, Eastern countries into Europe, and everything became more and more noticeable with the war in Syria, and a lot of people arrived to other countries in Europe, and they were there. They were people normally with studies, with some profession, and they were in a foreign country where they had to wait for their qualifications or for their experience being accepted, and nothing was happening. So how could we Europeans help these people who are arriving from these countries, mainly sometimes without documentation, without proof of their achievements? How can we help them? But still another question, how can we actually prepare our professionals in our universities to help these people? Because if our professionals are not aware of the problems and the situation these migrants and refugees bring with them, it's difficult to understand why they are in our country now and how to help them. So Beans, what is trying to do and what has developed is to create a number of content profiles, focusing on the validation of systems in higher education, create a set of guidelines, which are like frequent asked questions that give our professionals in the university ways of preparing themselves for possible questions that the refugees and the migrants might actually ask. We have created a glossary that explains in an easy way our technical wording and acronyms that maybe people from outside Europe are not aware of. And we have also created an online space where people can find information and exchange experiences. That is basically through Facebook. And yes, developed also, we are now in the process of developing staff training for validation professionals, not about their knowledge on how to do validation processes, but more about what they need to know to help these new arrivals. And then we are planning now with the development of some policy recommendations that will be addressed to policymakers to make them understand, first of all, what is the situation of these newcomers that arrive to Europe, and what are our professionals in our universities needing to be able to help them and to make their adaptation, integration, and the process of becoming citizens of Europe an easier task. So this is the background. Now, which are the facts? So this project is an Erasmus Plus project for support to policy reform and actually addressing social inclusion through education, training, and youth. We started the project the 31st of December 2016, the 1st of January 2017, and we'll finish the 30th of December next year, 2019. And eucen is the coordinator and the contractor. So we are leading the project. And who are the partners? So these are the partners. You will notice that it's a mix between NGOs, universities, full universities, and also VET providers, vocational education and training providers. The NGOs selected for this project were NGOs that were already in touch, connected, helping migrants and refugees in Europe, or were through their own members doing these tasks. So what we have is a balance between academics and practitioners who are actually undergoing validation processes in their institutions, but also a number of organizations that have this direct contact with migrants and refugees that know very well the problems and the situation they go through, and they could transfer into the educational institutions this kind of information. What is the situation when these people arrive to our countries? And now I will give the word to Francesca Uras to continue.
Yes, thanks, Carmen. So here you can see, I hope you can see it clear. It's the timeline of our project. which is organized in work packages. If you're familiar with the project structure. It all started with national meetings organized between the universities and NGOs, NGOs that are partners, associate partners in the project. And the idea was really to raise at national level the evidence necessary to set the scene for our project and gather the perspectives of refugees and newcomers, which are the ultimate beneficiaries of our project, and of the associations and organizations that directly work with them. Following this national gathering of evidence, all the partners met and shared the findings in the transnational peer learning seminar, which was the first event where all the partners met together. And it was the moment where the following project phases were set up. Following this, the partners worked on one side on the update of the vinyl country profiles. These vinyl country profiles were, we had some vinyl country profiles available from a previous eucen project, which is called ObservalNet, and some of you may be familiar with it. It was a project about validation, which produced some country profiles. But of course, these country profiles needed to be updated and also adapted according to the specific VINS project goals. So this was done, and I will show you on the VINS platform how they look like. But basically, they are country profiles explaining the state of implementation of vinyl in European countries. Vinyl within higher education, especially vinyl in the labor market, vinyl in the third sector, and the funding of vinyl. So on one side, the partners worked on updating these vinyl country profiles, and on the other side, they worked on collecting good practices, so case studies illustrating the experiences of validation of prior learning applied to refugees, newcomers, and migrants. And these country profiles and case studies were then the object of an analysis that I will tell you about in a while. The following project phase consisted in the drafting of a set of welcome guidelines addressed to higher education professionals and to be used as a tool when dealing or addressing refugees and newcomers. I will tell you more about these guidelines as well in a while. But they are basically guidelines about Europe in general, guidelines about the single partner countries, guidelines about the higher education system, about the separate institution concerned, and guidelines about the validation of prior learning system. So following the production of the guidelines, the partners worked on the design of a course for validation professionals. So a course designed to support validation professionals to apply validation to the specific target groups and to the specific needs of the target group. This course for validation professionals is about to be finalized. Carmen will tell you more about it later. And it will be also translated into French and German. So we will have it available in 3 different languages. After that, we will, well, we already started working on it, but we will go more deep into the policy aspects of the project. We will have a policy paper. We will also organize a consultation online on this policy paper to gather feedback on it. and it will also be translated into French and German. And yes, the interactive platform that I will show you in a while, it's the content where all the project outputs and outcomes are stored. And we invite you to check it, because it's where you can find all the project results. Yeah. So I told you about the country profiles that have been updated and adapted to the VINS project objectives, and about the case studies. So the country profiles are 37, and the case studies collected are 43, which are based on interviews and data collection from provided by refugees and newcomers directly. And then we have other 13 case studies which show evidence provided from VINIL professionals. The important thing is that the template that has been used for collecting the case studies is really structured according to the phases of the validation procedures. So the information collected could be relevant to the analysis. And the report that has been prepared on the basis of the country profiles and the case studies is try to understand how and to what extent validation of prior learning is really facilitated at the moment within higher education institutions across Europe, and how it is really accessible for the specific target group of refugees and migrants. It is important to say that the sample of case studies collected is not huge, as you can see. So we were not able to draw conclusions of statistical relevance, but still we find that the evidence collected could be helpful to draw conclusions and recommendations, focusing on the VINIL procedures, on the objectives of VINIL, on the impact that VINIL can have, and so we think it's very interesting to read this report more in detail. The report will be published on the VINS website, I think by next week or this week. So you will be able to access the report and read it whole. I would like to share just some of the main conclusions of this document, which can be interesting. So, well, we have, for example, observed that talking about the systemic level, there are some aspects of validation in higher education that prove to be particularly favorable. And these are the legal the existence of a legal framework, the existence of effective funding, and the fact that VINIL is affordable in practice to the specific target group, and also the importance of existing links to the labor market and the third sector. We observed from the case studies collected that refugees and migrants, among all other potential candidates to VINIL, may be particularly hesitant in accessing VINIL procedures in the beginning, but that information guidance prove very important for them and fundamental for their learning experiences, because they really allow refugees and migrants to be empowered and to get engaged actively in the VINIL process. Similarly, it is very important to showcase the benefits of VINIL in order to actively engage the target groups. What else? Yes, Well, we observed that the benefits of vinyl for refugees and migrants are manifold, and they can be expressed in terms of psychology, and with that I mean the awareness of the refugee or migrant of its own skills, of its own competencies, of its own value. They can be expressed in terms of educational attainment, so vinyl helps educational attainment, and they can be expressed in terms of career perspective because successfully undertaking vinyl procedures improve the career perspectives of the migrant and refugee concerned. And yes, this comes back to what I already mentioned. Guidance or mentoring offered in the documentation phase of the vinyl procedure is particularly beneficial for the refugees and migrants. Yeah, some other conclusions. We observed that the creation of a portfolio, of a transparent portfolio of personal and prior learning experiences really improves the ownership of the learning for the individual learner. We observe that NGOs have a very important role in the vinyl procedures, analyzed in terms of support, in terms of facilitation, but also in terms of funding. And finally, which is very important, and this confirms the need of one of the other project outputs that will be the course for validation professionals. We observe from the case studies collected and from the vinyl country profiles that the professionalization of higher education staff is badly needed, and that staff members need not only to be well trained in guidance and counseling, but also they need to be professionals able to have a clear overview of the whole process of vinyl, including the possibilities and the opportunities for further learning. So validation professionals have to have a very complex task to carry out, and therefore initial and continuous training is needed. So we mentioned the guidelines. The guidelines have been one of the other initial project outputs. They are literally guidelines addressed to higher education professionals and containing frequently asked questions, those questions that are most often posed by refugees and migrants. But the important thing is that these guidelines are not tools for refugees and migrants directly. These are tools that higher education professionals can use when they approach refugees and migrants and newcomers. So these are the 5 guidelines that have been prepared, and I would like to show to you the guidelines directly on the VINS platform. So I will go on. So the VINS platform is the VINS website, and it is organized in different sections. It hosts all the VINS outputs. I think it's probably easier to show you directly the platform from the web. Just a second. I will share my screen. Okay. Okay. So I hope you can all see my my screen right now. Okay. So, well, first of all, I would like to show you the country profiles that I mentioned earlier. So you need to go to validation in Europe, and here you have all these flags. So when you click on one of the flag, for example, we selected Austria. So here you see how the vinyl country profile look like. So you have a first part, which is an introduction. Then you have a section dedicated to VPL in higher education, with a focus on validation of formal learning and validation of non-formal and informal learning. You have a part dealing with validation in the labor market, and one dealing with validation in the third sector. Sorry, I clicked on something accidentally. Okay. So then you have information about funding. And at the bottom of the page, you have references. So references to documents, links, useful links, and things like this. And you have this for all these countries or regions. Then you have a section which is called experiences, and here you have testimonies of refugees and migrants who underwent validation procedures. But here you will soon also have the case studies published. So you will be able to find out more in detail about concrete validation experiences. And here you have the guidelines. So I'll click on guidelines and show you a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So as I said, we have five guidelines, five welcome guidelines. You have a welcome to Europe, which contains questions about living and working in Europe. You have a guideline, welcome to this country, and so you have specific questions concerning different European countries, concerning, for example, the conditions for refugees during and after the asylum seeking request, about the education system, the transport system, the health system, and so on. You have welcome to higher education in Europe. So this is about the higher education system. You have a welcome to this institution, which is specific for different institutions, and I will show it to you in a while. And you have a welcome to validation. In addition to these guidelines, you also have a glossary with terminology available. And this has been translated into different languages already. Now, I would like to show you as an example how the guidelines look like. So, for example, if we go to Welcome to Higher Education in Europe, okay. Yeah, so this is how the guidelines look like. So they are organized in a frequently asked questions structure. So here you have the questions, and when you click on the question, you get the reply. It's quite friendly, I think. What is important is that we conceived these guidelines as a model, as an example that everyone interested and higher education professional interested can easily download, use as template, and adapt to their own needs. So for example, here, so you have this friendly format of the guideline, but you also have the same guidelines in a doc or PDF format. You can download this version, and you can adapt them to your own needs. This can be particularly interesting, for example, if we go to the welcome to this institution guideline, because you may be interested, for example, in preparing a similar guideline for your own institution. So here, when you go to welcome to this institution, you have some examples of guidelines prepared by the VINS partners for their own institution, but you also have the template, the main template in PDF or doc. You can download it and adapt it to your needs. So we really try to to design a flexible tool that can be changed, can be adapted, and can respond to different needs. So coming back to the VINS platform, I would like to mention also that we have a library section with over 100 documents in 11 different languages. These documents can be browsed through different search options. They are categorized by publication year, by country, by language, by type of document, and so on. So we invite you to have a look. There's a section then on the website called forum. And well, the idea was initially to create a forum on the platform itself, but then we created a forum on Facebook. It's a discussion group, if you're familiar with that. And since it looked like it was working well, we decided to keep the Facebook group instead of a forum on the website. So here you have the link to join the forum on Facebook. We invite you to do so. The name of the group is Support Refugees Access to Higher Education Through Validation. So here you have the link. Then you have a section called News, and here you have not only VINS project newsletters, but also other important news and links to the social media. I will skip this section called Validation Prize because Carmen will talk about it in a second. And then, yes, I forgot to mention that within the section News, you have a subsection about the VINS training. Because well, in June 2018, all the partners met in Oslo, hosted by NOKUT, the Norwegian Agency for Quality in Higher Education, and participate in a training offered by NOKUT, organized by NOKUT, about validation of prior learning addressed to refugees and newcomers. And the idea is that now each higher education institution adapt this training and offer the training at national level. So, for example, here you have the date of the training workshop organized in Austria by our Austrian partners in the project. And you will see in this page, the dates of the other VINS training workshops organized in the other partner countries. I say this in case you are interested in taking part in it. This may be a good chance to get familiar with the project tools. And yeah, well, that's another section dedicated to the consortium, but I don't think I need to mention this. So I think we can go back to the presentation. Which I'm trying to do, but it's not working. Somehow it's blocked. I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm there.
Perdona. Continue. Okay. So I will continue with the rest of the presentation. We are almost there. So I will talk to you very little, only a few words about the training course for validation professionals. Francesca has already told you a bit, so I will not be very long. But yes, what we've identified in the project, we already knew the situation that it's very clear now that there is very existing courses or modules within courses addressed to train validation professionals. And the candidates for validation today have changed, are not the same sort of traditional candidates that the validation professionals were working with. So it's very clear to us, to all the consortium and to all the people that we've talked and the case studies we have collected, that there is a need for developing some kind of training, some kind of help for validation professionals that now have to deal with the peculiarities, with the exceptionality of the candidates coming from different countries, many times in very difficult situations and very difficult ways they arrive to Europe, to our countries. So having all these things in mind, we are now working on the development of the generic course for validation professionals. It's going to be a generic course because the idea is that since it's also a fact that the validation of professionals in different countries in Europe are different are at different stages. In some countries, for example, France, the validation is a very well established system that everybody has the right to do, and the Ministry of Education foresees that this is happening and it's in the law already. In other countries, there is no law really helping this validation of prior learning or non-formal or informal learning. So having this in mind, having in mind the difficulties and the differences in the different countries, the course is an open course that each person that wants to use it will be able to adapt and to include more or less material depending on the stage in which they are. And this is the basic structure that we have developed for the course. There will be a background section about the specific geo-economic situation of Europe and of the countries, the most well, the countries where the migrants and refugees come from normally. Then there will be a bit of an explanation about what is the existing training materials for validation professionals that is already available in case there are new members of staff in higher education that start doing this kind of tasks. Then there will be a section about the definition of the target group specifically, and a list of learning outcomes, which are the learning outcomes that we recommend that validation professionals acquire during this course. And then there will be some guidelines how to use the country profiles that we think, we're convinced are going to be useful for them, how to use the guidelines and the glossary, because we'll allow professionals of validation to prepare and anticipate to the questions that migrants and refugees might actually ask them. So we foresee that it's going to be useful for them to be prepared in that respect. And then it will be another space where we will help validation professionals to integrate the knowledge, the characteristics of the good practices that we have identified in the case studies and transfer them into their reality, their needs, their country. So, and then the module, the course will finish with a practical workshop that we recommend everybody to do when they do this course. So all these materials will be very soon available in our platform, as Francesca has mentioned. And the last thing that I want to explain is about the BINS Validation Award 2019. We've launched this, we'll announce this award. It will be we are already collecting case studies. If any of you have or know of any case studies that match that this kind of cases with migrants, validation of migrants and refugees prior learning, please consider the possibility of submitting a case study for us, because the three best or the three case studies that match the criteria, you'll see now what we mean. Oh no, it's not here, but I can tell you the three case studies that match, yes, transferability, relevance, impact, and sustainability better will be offer the possibility to come to Barcelona and to present their work at the final event of BINS that will be in next year on the 14th of November 2019. And the terms and conditions, everything, the form that has to be filled in and all the information is available online on the platform. I could try to share the screen, but maybe it's not a good idea because it's very late already. So it's the same web of BINS, http://beans.eucen.eu. If you visit there, there is a section on BINS Award, and you can then there read all the information, the details, and also download the form that has to be filled in and submitted to us. On 10th of April, we will close the collection of case studies. On 21st of June, we will make the list, we will make public the list of nominees for the prize. On the 14th of November, we will award the prize in Barcelona, and the three finalists will be here, we hope. They will present the cases, and then the trophy will be given to the winner of the three. So we hope that you are encouraged to send your work and to disseminate this. And I think that that's probably all for us. I don't know if there is any questions or any comments. We could actually maybe take a couple of questions if anybody has. You can either write it on the chat, or if you prefer to speak, maybe we can give you voice if you want. And if not, you can always send your questions to our email address, beans@eucen.eu, and we will be very happy to answer any questions or to help you with the materials that we are developing and wherever you need. So I'm not sure if anybody wants to say anything. If not, probably we can close the webinar here. We thank you very much for your attention, and we hope to meet you again very soon in future online events like this. Thank you for your attention.